The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reflected on the calm waters of the harbor. Jack Anderson, a 30-year-old man with the weight of the world on his shoulders, walked aimlessly through the cobblestone streets of the old town. Despite his impeccable designer suit and luxury watch, his gaze was lost, empty, as if searching for something he couldn't name. 10 years ago, Jack had inherited a fortune that many could only dream of. The tragic death of his parents in a plane crash had left him orphaned at 20, turning him overnight into one of the wealthiest men in the country. However, money had not filled the void left by the loss of his family. As he walked, his thoughts wandered to his yacht, the Hope, anchored in the harbor. It was his home, his refuge, but also his golden prison. There he spent most of his time, surrounded by luxury but completely alone. Suddenly, a noise caught his attention. In a nearby alley, a hunched figure was rummaging through garbage containers. Jack approached curiously and saw an elderly woman with grey hair and tattered clothes. Beside her, a young woman watched her with concern. "Mom, please, just leave it," the young woman pleaded. "There's nothing here we can use." The old woman looked up, and Jack was surprised to see bright blue eyes full of life that contrasted with her disheveled appearance. "Emma, my dear, we can't give up," the old woman replied with a surprisingly firm voice. "There's always hope, even in the most unexpected places." Jack felt a pang in his heart. Those words resonated within him in a way he couldn't explain. Without thinking twice, he approached the two women. "Excuse me," he said softly. "I couldn't help but overhear. Can I help you with anything?" The young woman, Emma, looked at him with distrust, but the old woman gave him a warm smile. "Oh, how kind of you, young man," the old woman replied. "I'm Martha, and this is my daughter, Emma. We're looking for, well, anything that might be useful to us." Jack noticed the shame in Emma's voice and the wounded pride in her eyes. However, it was Martha's dignity that struck him the most. "My name is Jack," he introduced himself. I have a yacht in the harbor. It's big, too big for me alone. If you need a place to spend the night, I'd be happy to offer you a room." Emma opened her mouth to protest, but Martha interrupted her with a look. "You're very generous, Jack," Martha said, "but we don't want to be a burden to anyone." Jack felt an urgency he hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in a long time, he felt he could do something meaningful, something that went beyond simply spending money. "You wouldn't be a burden at all," he insisted. "In fact, you'd be doing me a favor. It's very lonely there." There was a moment of silence. Emma and Martha exchanged glances, a silent conversation between mother and daughter. Finally, Martha nodded. "Very well, Jack," she said with a smile. "We accept your offer, at least for tonight." As the three walked towards the harbor, Jack felt that something had changed in the air. He couldn't explain it, but for the first time in years, he felt a spark of something he had forgotten. Hope. As they boarded the yacht, Martha and Emma couldn't hide their amazement at the luxury surrounding them. Jack guided them to two adjoining rooms, each larger than the apartment they had lost months ago. "Make yourselves comfortable," Jack said. "Dinner will be ready in an hour. Please, feel at home." When they were alone, Emma turned to her mother. "Mum, are you sure about this?" she whispered. "We don't know this man." Martha took her daughter's hands in hers. "Emma, my child, sometimes life offers us unexpected opportunities. I feel we can trust Jack. Besides," she added with a wink, "what alternative do we have?" Emma nodded, still unsure, but trusting her mother's instinct. What neither of them knew was that this night would mark the beginning of a journey that would change their lives forever. Dinner passed in an uncomfortable silence, interrupted only by the clinking of cutlery against fine china. Jack, accustomed to dining alone, found himself at a loss for words. Emma kept her head down, as if fearing any movement might break the spell and return them to the street. Martha, however, observed everything with bright and curious eyes. "This yacht is truly impressive, Jack," Martha finally commented, breaking the silence. "It must be wonderful to be able to travel the world in it." Jack gave a sad smile. "The truth is, I hardly ever move it from the harbor," he admitted. "I don't have I don't have a reason to go anywhere." Martha looked at him with a mixture of compassion and curiosity. "Sometimes, the most important journey is the one we take within ourselves," she said softly. Something in Martha's words touched a sensitive chord in Jack. Before he knew it, he found himself talking about things he had never shared with anyone. "My parents died 10 years ago," he said quietly. "Since then, I've been lost. All of this," he gestured, encompassing the luxurious dining room, "means nothing without them." Emma looked up, surprised by the vulnerability in Jack's voice. For the first time, she saw beyond his wealth, seeing the lonely and hurt man hiding behind it. "I'm so sorry," Emma said, her voice barely a whisper. "It must be very difficult." Jack nodded, grateful for the empathy in her voice. "And you?" he asked, eager to change the subject. "How did you end up in that situation?" Martha and Emma exchanged a look. It was Martha who spoke. "Life takes many turns, dear," she said with a sad smile. "There was a time when I was a promising artist. I exhibited in galleries, sold my paintings, but circumstances changed. I had to leave that life behind to protect Emma." Jack noticed how Emma tensed at her mother's words. Clearly, there was more to that story than Martha was willing to share. "You were an artist?" Jack asked, genuinely interested. "What kind of art did you do?" Martha's eyes lit up at the memory. "Oh, I painted. Oils, mainly. Landscapes. Portraits. I loved capturing the essence of people and places." "Mom was incredible," Emma interjected, with evident pride in her voice. "Her paintings seemed to come to life." Jack looked around at the bare walls of the yacht. "You know, I've always thought this place needed some color," he said thoughtfully. Maybe you could paint something for me, Martha." Surprise and excitement reflected on Martha's face. "Oh, I haven't touched a brush in years," she said, though her eyes sparkled at the idea. "I don't know if I still could." "Of course you could, Mom," Emma encouraged her. "Your talent doesn't just disappear like that." Jack stood up from the table, excited for the first time in a long time. "I have an idea," he said. "Why don't you stay here for a few more days? I can get everything you need to paint Martha, and Emma if you want." "You could help her." Emma looked at Jack with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. "You're very kind, Jack, but we can't take advantage of your hospitality," she said. "It's not taking advantage if I'm offering," Jack insisted. "Please, consider it. You'd be doing me a great favor. This place, it needs life. And I think you could bring it back." Martha took her daughter's hand. "Emma, dear, I think we should accept," she said softly. "Maybe it's fate that brought us here." Emma hesitated for a moment, but seeing the hope in her mother's eyes, she nodded. "All right," she finally said. "We'll stay a few more days." Jack felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he didn't even know was there. "Perfect," he said with a genuine smile. "Tomorrow I'll get everything you need to start painting." That night, as everyone retired to their rooms, the yacht seemed different. It was no longer a cold, empty space, but a place full of possibilities. Jack went to bed feeling something he hadn't experienced in years, anticipation for the next day. In her room, Martha looked out the window at the sea illuminated by the moon. Her fingers moved unconsciously, as if holding an invisible brush. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" Emma asked from the doorway. Martha turned to her daughter with a serene smile. "Sometimes, my child, life gives us second chances," she said. "I believe this is ours." Emma nodded, still unsure but willing to trust her mother. What none of the three knew was that this was just the beginning of a journey that would lead them to face their past, uncover buried secrets, and perhaps find a family in the most unexpected place. The next morning dawned with a different energy on the yacht. Jack, who normally slept late, woke up early, eager to fulfill his promise. After making some calls, he arranged for the delivery of a complete set of art supplies: canvases, brushes, oils in every imaginable color, easels, and everything Martha might need to start painting again. When Martha and Emma emerged from their rooms, they found the yacht's main salon transformed into an improvised art studio. Martha's eyes filled with tears at the sight of the materials. "Oh, Jack," she whispered, caressing a brush reverently, This is too much. Jack, for the first time in years, felt true satisfaction. It's nothing, he said with a smile. Consider it an investment in beauty. Emma observed the scene with a mixture of emotions. On one hand, she was happy to see her mother so excited, but on the other, she couldn't help feeling some apprehension. Her mother's past as an artist was tied to painful memories that Emma barely understood. "Mom," she said softly, "are you sure you want to do this?" Martha looked at her daughter with determination. "Emma, my dear, for too long I've let fear dictate my actions. It's time to reclaim what I lost." With trembling but determined hands, Martha took a brush and approached a blank canvas. Jack and Emma watched in silence as the old woman closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and with a fluid motion, began to paint. What happened next was almost magical. Martha's hands moved with a grace and confidence that belied her years of inactivity. Vibrant colors came to life on the canvas, forming shapes and patterns that seemed to emanate directly from the artist's soul. Jack was fascinated. He had never seen anyone paint with such passion and skill. Emma, for her part, watched her mother with a mixture of pride and concern. There was something in the way Martha painted, an almost painful intensity, that made Emma wonder what memories her mother was unearthing. Hours passed without anyone noticing. The sun moved across the sky, changing the light that entered through the yacht's windows, but Martha kept painting, lost in her world of colors and shapes. Finally, as the sunset tinged the sky with reddish hues, Martha took a step back, putting down the brush. On the canvas, a dreamlike landscape had taken shape, a beach at sunset, with waves of deep blue breaking against golden rocks. But what stood out most was the solitary figure standing on the beach, back to the viewer, looking towards the horizon. Although only its silhouette could be seen, there was something in its posture that conveyed a deep melancholy. Jack was the first to break the silence. "Martha, this is incredible," he said, with genuine admiration in his voice. "You have an extraordinary gift." Emma approached the painting, her eyes fixed on the solitary figure. "Mom," she whispered, "is that—" Martha nodded softly, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Yes, my dear, it's your father." Jack, feeling he was witnessing an intimate moment, took a step back but couldn't help overhearing. "You've never shown me what he looked like," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly. Martha put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "There was a time when it was too painful to remember," she admitted. "But now I feel it's time for you to know your story, our story." Jack, feeling like an intruder, cleared his throat. I'll leave you alone," he said, heading towards the door. But Martha stopped him with a gesture. "No, Jack. Please, stay," she said with a sad smile. "I think it's time for both of you to know the truth. You've been very kind to us, and you deserve to know why we ended up in that situation." Jack hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded and took a seat. Emma sat next to her mother, her eyes fixed on the painting she had just created. Martha took a deep breath and began her story. "Many years ago, I was a young artist full of dreams and ambitions. I fell madly in love with Thomas, the man in the painting, your father, Emma. He was an artist too, a brilliant sculptor. Together, we believed we could conquer the art world." Martha's voice trembled slightly as she continued. "We married young, and we were happy, very happy. But the art world can be cruel and competitive. One day, we met Michael." Jack noticed how Emma tensed upon hearing that name. Michael was an art dealer, charismatic and seemingly successful. He promised us fame and fortune, told us he could take our art to an international level. And we, young and naive, believed him. Martha paused, her eyes lost in memories. At first, everything seemed to be going well. Our works were selling. Our names were starting to be known. But little by little, we realized something wasn't right. Michael was pressuring us to produce more and more, and we began to suspect he was selling forgeries of our works. Emma took her mother's hand, giving her strength to continue. When we confronted Michael, he showed his true colors. He was a dangerous man with connections in the criminal world. He threatened us, Said that if we reported him, we would pay dearly. Jack listened with growing horror, beginning to understand the magnitude of what Martha and Emma had lived through. Thomas, your father, Emma, decided we couldn't stand by and do nothing. He said he would go to the police, that he had evidence. I was pregnant with you at the time, and I begged him not to do it, that it was too dangerous, but he insisted it was the right thing to do. Tears were flowing freely down Martha's face now. The night Thomas was going to go to the police, there was an accident. His car went off the road. The police said he had lost control, but I knew the truth. Michael had silenced him. Emma choked back a sob, while Jack felt his heart constrict at the pain in Martha's voice. After that, I fled. I changed our names, abandoned art, did everything I could to make sure Michael wouldn't find us. I've spent the last few years looking over my shoulder, fearing that one day he would find us. Martha looked at Jack with eyes full of gratitude and guilt. And now, by accepting your generosity, I fear I've put you in danger too, Jack. If Michael ever finds out I've started painting again. Jack stood up, a fierce determination in his eyes. I won't let anything happen to you, he said firmly. You have my word. I'll do everything in my power to protect you. Emma looked at Jack with a mixture of gratitude and something else, something she couldn't name. Thank you, Jack, she said softly. But you don't know what you're getting into. Jack smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Maybe not, he admitted. But for the first time in years, I feel like I have a purpose, and I'm not going to abandon you. As the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky in the same colors that Martha had captured on her canvas, the three of them sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts. They didn't know it then, but that moment would mark the beginning of a battle that would lead them to face their deepest fears and, perhaps, find the redemption they all sought. The following days passed in a strange calm. Martha painted with renewed fervor, filling Jack's yacht with color and life. Emma, inspired by her mother, began to explore her own artistic talent, discovering a latent ability for photography. Jack, for his part, found himself enjoying the company and creative energy that the two women had brought into his life. However, beneath the surface of this apparent tranquility, a current of tension was growing. Jack, moved by a desire to protect Martha and Emma, had begun to discreetly investigate Michael and his network of art forgeries. What he discovered left him cold. Michael was not only still active in the art world, but his influence seemed to have grown in recent years. One afternoon, while Martha and Emma were busy in the improvised studio, Jack received a call that would change everything. "Mr. Anderson," said a deep voice on the other end of the line. "This is Detective Johnson. I'm afraid we need to talk about some irregularities in the art world that might be related to you." Jack felt his heart race. Had his investigations caught the wrong attention? "Of course, Detective," he responded, trying to keep calm. "What's this about?" "I'd prefer to discuss it in person," said Johnson. "Could we meet tomorrow on your yacht?" Jack agreed, with a knot in his stomach. After hanging up, he debated whether he should tell Martha and Emma about the call. Finally, he decided not to alarm them unnecessarily until he knew more. The next morning, Detective Johnson arrived at the yacht. He was a middle-aged man with astute eyes that seemed to notice every detail. "Mr. Anderson," Johnson began, once they were seated on the deck, "we've noticed an increase in art forgery activity in the city, and your recent interest in certain individuals hasn't gone unnoticed." Jack kept his face impassive, though inside his mind was working at full speed. "Detective, I assure you my interest is purely academic," he responded carefully. "As an art collector, I'm concerned about the integrity of the market." Johnson looked at him intently, as if trying to read his thoughts. "Mr. Anderson, I understand your position, but I must warn you that you're playing with fire. The man you're investigating, Michael Reeves, is extremely dangerous." At that moment, footsteps were heard on the deck. Martha appeared, with a paintbrush in her hand and paint stains on her apron. She stopped short when she saw the detective. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said, taking a step back. "I didn't know you had company, Jack." Johnson stood up immediately, his eyes fixed on Martha. "Excuse me, ma'am, we haven't been introduced," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Detective Johnson." Martha visibly paled, and the paintbrush fell from her hand. "Feige, I'm Martha," she muttered, casting a panicked look at Jack. Johnson looked alternately at Jack and Martha, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Mr. Anderson, who is this lady?" he asked in a tense voice. Jack stood up, protectively positioning himself in front of Martha. "She's a friend, Detective. She's staying with me while working on some art projects." Johnson nodded slowly, but it was evident he wasn't convinced. "Mrs. Martha." "May I ask your last name?" inquired the detective. Before Martha could respond, Emma appeared on the deck, attracted by the voices. "Mom, is everything okay?" she asked, stopping when she saw the scene in front of her. Detective Johnson looked at Emma, then at Martha and finally at Jack. His expression hardened. "Mr. Anderson, I think you have a lot to explain," he said gravely. "And you too, ladies." Jack knew the moment of truth had arrived. He looked at Martha, who nodded resignedly. "Detective," Jack began, "it's a long story, but I assure you that no one here has done anything illegal. In fact, these women are victims of a criminal who has been evading justice for years." Over the next hour, Martha, with the help of Jack and Emma, recounted her story to Detective Johnson. They told him about Michael, the forgeries, Thomas's death, and the years of fleeing and fear. When they finished, Johnson remained silent for a long moment, processing all the information. This changes everything," he finally said. "Mrs. Martha, your testimony could be key to bringing down Michael Reeves and his forgery network." Martha visibly trembled. "But Detective, what if Michael finds out? He's been looking for us for years." Johnson leaned forward, his voice soft but firm. "I promise we'll do everything possible to protect you. But we need your help to put an end to Michael's crimes once and for all." Jack took Martha's hand, surprising himself with the gesture. "You're not alone in this," he said with determination. "I'll support you in whatever you need." Emma looked at Jack with gratitude and something more, a feeling that was starting to blossom between them. "Thank you, Jack," she said softly. "I don't know what we'd do without you." Johnson stood up, his expression serious but with a glimmer of hope. "All right, this is what we'll do." As the detective explained his plan, none of them noticed the figure observing them from afar with binoculars. On a nearby yacht, a man in an elegant suit lowered the binoculars, a cruel smile on his lips. "Well, well, Martha," Michael muttered to himself, "I've finally found you, and it seems you've made some interesting friends." The sun was beginning to set on the horizon, painting the sky blood red, while on Jack's yacht a plan was being drawn up that would change their lives forever. The battle against Michael was about to begin, and none of them could imagine the twists that fate had in store for them. The days following were a whirlwind of activity on Jack's yacht. Detective Johnson had set up an undercover operation to catch Michael, and everyone had a role to play. The plan was audacious. They would organize an art exhibition, presenting Martha's new works under a pseudonym. The news of a rediscovered artist with a style similar to Martha's in her youth would surely attract Michael's attention. Meanwhile, Emma would use her newly discovered photography skills to discreetly document the attendees. Looking for any sign of Michael or his associates, Jack C., for his part, would use his connections in the art world to give credibility to the event and attract the right buyers. He would also take care of security, hiring a discreet but efficient team to protect Martha and Emma. As the day of the exhibition approached, the tension on the yacht was palpable. Martha painted with a feverish intensity, producing work after work, each more impressive than the last. Emma spent hours perfecting her photography skills, preparing for her crucial role in the operation. Jack, meanwhile, found himself increasingly emotionally involved. Seeing Martha and Emma work together, supporting each other, awakened in him a longing for the family he had never had. And although he tried to deny it, his feelings for Emma were growing in a way he couldn't ignore. One night, a few days before the exhibition, Jack found Emma alone on the deck, looking at the stars. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly, approaching her. Emma turned to him, a tired smile on her face. "There are too many thoughts in my head," she admitted. Fear, hope, confusion, all mixed together? Jack nodded, understanding perfectly. Emma, he began, his voice full of contained emotion, I want you to know that, whatever happens, I'll be here for you and your mother. Emma looked at him, her eyes bright in the moonlight. Jack, She stopped, as if searching for the right words. I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for us. Without thinking, Jack took her hand. You don't have to thank me for anything, he said softly. You've brought life and purpose to my existence. I'm the one who should be grateful. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Jack and Emma looked at each other, the air between them charged with an energy that neither of them dared to name. Slowly, almost without realizing it, they leaned towards each other. Emma, Jack, Martha's voice broke the spell. Are you out here? They quickly separated, like surprised teenagers. Martha appeared on the deck, with a worried expression. Ah, here you are, she said, not noticing the tension between them. I couldn't sleep, and thought maybe we could go over the plan one more time. Jack and Emma exchanged a look, a world of unspoken possibilities passing between them. Sure, Mum, Emma said, her voice slightly shaky. Let's go over the plan. As the three sat down to discuss the operation details once again, none of them could imagine the twists that fate had in store for them. The exhibition was just days away, and with it, the confrontation that would change their lives forever. What they didn't know was that, at that very moment, Michael was making his own plans. He had recognized Martha's style in the paintings promoted for the exhibition, and he was determined not to leave any loose ends this time. Prepare everything, he ordered his henchmen. For the day of the exhibition, we'll take care of Martha and anyone who tries to protect her. This time, there will be no mistakes. The board was set, the pieces in place. The game was about to begin, and the price of defeat could be higher than any of them could imagine. The day of the exhibition arrived with a mix of anticipation and fear. Jack's yacht, transformed into an elegant floating gallery, was anchored in the city's most exclusive harbor. Martha's works, signed under the pseudonym M. Light, adorned the walls, each more impressive than the last. Martha, dressed with an elegance that recalled her days of glory as an artist, moved among the guests with apparent calm, although Jack could see the tension in her eyes. Emma, with a camera hanging from her neck, discreetly captured images of the attendees, always alert for any suspicious face. Jack, for his part, played the role of perfect host, chatting with guests and promoting M. Light's talent. However, his eyes constantly scanned the crowd, looking for any sign of danger. Detective Johnson, dressed in civilian clothes, mingled with the guests, his team strategically located around the yacht. The trap was set. All that was missing was for Michael to appear. As the night progressed, the tension grew. Several works had already been sold, and murmurs of admiration for M. Light's talent filled the air. But of Michael there was no trace. Near midnight, when it seemed the plan had failed, an elegant middle-aged man came aboard. Jack felt his blood run cold as he recognized him from the photographs Martha had shown him. It was Michael. With a discreet gesture, Jack alerted Johnson and his team. Emma, noticing the sudden tension, began taking photographs more frequently, making sure to capture every move Michael made. Michael moved through the gallery with the confidence of a predator, his eyes scrutinizing each work intensely. When he reached a particular painting, a seascape that vividly recalled Martha's early style, he stopped. Fascinating, he murmured, his voice barely audible. It's as if time hadn't passed. At that moment, Martha, who had been avoiding getting close to Michael, found herself face to face with him. Their gazes met, and for an instant, the world seemed to stop. Martha, Michael said, a cruel smile curving his lips. After so many years, you're still as beautiful as your paintings. Martha stood tall, facing her former tormentor with a dignity that Jack couldn't help but admire. It's over, Michael, she said firmly. You can't hurt us anymore. Michael laughed softly, a sound that sent chills down the spines of all who heard it. Oh, my dear Martha, he said, dangerously approaching. Pulling out a weapon, or the girl pays for it. Jack felt his heart stop. Everything they had worked for, everything they had planned, seemed to crumble in an instant. "Michael, please," Martha pleaded, her voice trembling. "She has nothing to do with this. It's me you want." Michael looked at Martha, then at Emma, and a sinister smile formed on his face. "Oh, but you're wrong, dear Martha," he said in a soft voice. "She has everything to do with this. Isn't that right, Jack?" Jack felt the ground open beneath his feet. How could Michael know? "What are you talking about?" Emma asked, her voice shaky but defiant. Michael laughed, a cold sound without humor. "Well, well," he said, looking at Martha. "Haven't you told your daughter the truth about her father, about who Jack really is?" Martha paled, her eyes full of horror. Jack took a step forward, his mind working at full speed. "Michael." "Whatever you think you know, you're wrong," he said, trying to keep calm. "Let Emma go and let's talk about this." Michael let out a bitter laugh. "Talk? Oh, Jack. Or should I say, Thomas Jr. We've long passed the stage of talking." A sepulchral silence fell over the gallery. Emma looked at Jack, then at her mother, confusion and pain evident on her face. "What is he talking about?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Mum, what's going on?" Martha, with tears in her eyes, took a step forward. "Emma, there's so much I haven't told you. Jack is—" She paused, searching for words. "Jack is your brother." The revelation fell like a bomb. The remaining guests gasped. Detective Johnson cursed under his breath, and Jack felt the world fading around him. "My brother?" Emma looked at Jack, her eyes full of confusion and betrayal. "But how?" Michael, still holding Emma, smiled maliciously. "Oh, this is a fascinating story, hon," he said. "You see, dear, your mother didn't just have one child with Thomas. She had twins. But in her desperation to protect them from me, she decided to separate them. Jack was adopted by a rich family, while you stayed with Martha. How convenient, isn't it?" Jack looked at Martha, seeking confirmation. The expression of pain and guilt on the woman's face was all the answer he needed. "Why?" Jack asked, his voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" Martha sobbed. "I wanted to protect you both. I thought if you were separated, at least one of you would be safe from Michael." Michael laughed, a cold sound without joy. "And look how well that's worked out, Martha. Here we all are, finally reunited. A true family reunion." Detective Johnson, seeing an opportunity, took a step forward. "Michael, it's over. You're surrounded. Let the girl go and surrender." Michael looked around, evaluating his options. For a moment it seemed he was going to give up. But then, in a quick movement, he dragged Emma towards the yacht's railing. "If I can't have my revenge, at least I'll take something precious from Martha," he growled. Everything happened in a matter of seconds. Michael jumped overboard, taking Emma with him. Jack, without thinking twice, dove after them. The cold harbor water enveloped them. Jack fought against the current, desperately searching for Emma. He saw her a few meters away, struggling with Michael. With a strength born of desperation, Jack swam towards them. He managed to grab Emma and, with a quick movement, pulled her away from Michael. "Swim towards the yacht!" he shouted to her. Emma, coughing and gasping, obeyed. Jack turned towards Michael, who looked at him with a mixture of hatred and surprise. "It's over, Michael," Jack said. "You can't hurt us anymore." Michael, in a final act of defiance, tried to grab Jack, but years of excess and a life of crime had taken their toll. His movements were slow, clumsy. Jack easily dodged his attack, and with a well-aimed blow, knocked Michael unconscious. Then, holding him by the shirt collar, he began swimming back to the yacht. When they reached the ladder, Detective Johnson's team was already there to help them. They pulled Emma out first, then Jack, and finally the unconscious Michael, soaking wet and shivering. Jack and Emma looked at each other. There was so much to say, so many unanswered questions, but for now, only one thing mattered. They were safe. Martha ran towards them, wrapping both in a desperate embrace. "My children," she sobbed. "My beautiful children. I'm so sorry." Jack and Emma looked at each other over Martha's shoulder. At that moment, despite the confusion and pain, They felt a connection that went beyond words. They were siblings, united by blood and now by an experience that had changed them forever. As Johnson and his team took Michael away, dawn began to break on the horizon. It was the beginning of a new day, and for Jack, Emma, and Martha, the start of a new life together. But as the adrenaline began to dissipate, new questions arose. How would this revelation affect their relationship? Could they forgive Martha for hiding the truth from them for so many years? And more importantly, how would they navigate this new reality as a family? The sun rose over the harbor, illuminating the yacht and the three embracing figures on the deck. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope. The days following the dramatic night of the exhibition were a whirlwind of emotions for Jack, Emma, and Martha. The yacht, once a refuge of creativity and hope, now seemed charged with secrets and half-told truths. Jack and Emma, still processing the news of their kinship, oscillated between the closeness born from their shared experience and the discomfort of the feelings they had started to develop before knowing the truth. Every look, every gesture, was now loaded with new meaning. Martha, for her part, carried the weight of her finally revealed secret. She spent hours sitting in front of a blank canvas, unable to paint, memories of the past tormenting her. One morning, Jack found Emma on the deck, looking towards the horizon. He approached her, maintaining a prudent distance. "Hey," he said softly. "How are you?" Emma turned to him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of emotions. "Honestly, I don't know," Emma replied. "It's like my whole life has been a lie." Jack nodded, understanding perfectly. "I know what you mean," he said. It's a lot to process." They stayed silent for a moment, the sound of the waves filling the space between them. "Jack," Emma began, her voice barely a whisper, before we knew the truth, I know," Jack interrupted softly. "Me too." They looked at each other, a mixture of pain and longing in their eyes. "What do we do now?" Emma asked. Before Jack could answer, Martha appeared on the deck. She stopped when she saw them, guilt evident on her face. I'm sorry," she said, turning to leave. "Wait, Mum," Emma called. "I think it's time we talk, all of us." Jack nodded, and the three sat around the deck table. For a moment, no one spoke, the weight of secrets and unspoken truths hanging over them. Finally, Martha broke the silence. "I owe you an explanation," she began, her voice trembling. "Both of you." Over the next hour, Martha told them the whole story. She spoke of her love for Thomas, the birth of the twins, the constant threat from Michael. She told them how, in a desperate attempt to protect them, she had made the painful decision to separate her children. "Jack," she said, turning to him, "I gave you to the Anderson family because I knew they could give you a life that I couldn't offer you. A life away from the danger Michael represented." Jack listened in silence, the pieces of his life finally falling into place. "But why didn't you tell me when we met?" he asked. Martha lowered her gaze. "I was afraid," she admitted, "afraid that you'd hate me for abandoning you, afraid that Michael would come back if he discovered we were all together. And then, when I saw how you and Emma were getting close..." She paused, tears running down her cheeks. "I didn't know how to tell you the truth without destroying what you were building." Emma took her mother's hand. "Mum," she said softly, "I understand why you did it. But you robbed us of the chance to grow up together, to know each other as siblings." Jack nodded, adding, "And now it's complicated. Emma and I, He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all understood the complexity of the situation. Martha looked at both of them, pain and remorse evident in her eyes. "I know, and I'm so sorry," she said. "If I could go back. But I can't. I can only ask for your forgiveness and hope that, in time, you can understand why I did what I did." Jack and Emma looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Jack spoke. "Mom," he said, the words sounding strange but right on his lips. "It's not going to be easy. There's a lot to process, a lot to heal. But you're our mother, and we want to try." Emma nodded, squeezing Martha's hand. "We're family," she said. And family sticks together, even in difficult times. Martha sobbed, drawing both of them into an embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "I promise I'll do everything I can to make up for the lost years." As they hugged, the sun shone down on them, as if the universe itself was sealing their promise of a new beginning. But as they separated, new questions arose. How would they navigate this new family dynamic? How would Jack and Emma handle the feelings they had started to develop? And what would happen to the yacht, which had witnessed so much drama and now held so many secrets? The path to healing and true family unity was just beginning, and it would be full of challenges. But for the first time in a long time, Jack, Emma, and Martha felt they had a real chance to be the family they were always meant to be. The weeks following the revelation were an adjustment period for everyone. The yacht, which had once been a refuge, now seemed too small to contain all the emotions and memories floating between them. Jack, accustomed to his solitude, now found himself navigating the unknown waters of family life. Every morning, waking up to find Martha preparing breakfast or Emma working on her photographs, he felt a mixture of joy and bewilderment. Emma, for her part, struggled with her conflicting feelings. On one hand, she was excited to have found the brother she never knew she had. On the other, she couldn't deny the attraction she had felt for Jack before knowing the truth, and that filled her with guilt and confusion. Martha, determined to make up for lost years, strived to create family moments. She organized dinners, proposed board games, and even suggested a family painting day. But sometimes, her efforts seemed forced, as if she were trying to compress a lifetime of lost moments into a few weeks. One afternoon, as Jack was working on the deck, Emma approached him, a serious expression on her face. "Jack, we need to talk," she said, sitting down beside him. Jack nodded, feeling this moment had been coming for a while. "It's about us," Emma continued. "About what was happening between us before—" "I know," Jack interrupted softly. "I've been thinking about it a lot too." They looked at each other, a mixture of longing and sadness in their eyes. "We can't deny what we felt," Emma said. "But now we're siblings," Jack completed. "I know, it's complicated." Emma nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Part of me wishes we had never discovered the truth," she admitted quietly. "But then I feel guilty for thinking that." Jack took her hand, a gesture that now had a completely different meaning. "Don't feel guilty," he said. "It's natural to feel confused. But Emma, regardless of how all this started, I'm grateful to have found you, to have found our family." Emma smiled through her tears. "Me too," she said. "But how do we move forward from here?" Before Jack could answer, Martha appeared on the deck, an envelope in her hands and a surprised expression on her face. "Kids," Martha said, her voice trembling slightly. "I just received this." Jack and Emma instinctively separated, as if they had been caught doing something improper. Martha seemed not to notice, too absorbed in the contents of the envelope. "What is it, Mom?" Emma asked, grateful for the distraction. Martha sat down with them, spreading an official letter on the table. "It's from the city's Museum of Contemporary Art," she explained. They want to organize a retrospective exhibition of my work, including the new pieces I created here, on the yacht." Jack and Emma exchanged a look of surprise and joy. "Mom, that's incredible," Emma exclaimed, hugging Martha. "Congratulations," Jack added, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "You deserve it." Martha, however, seemed conflicted. "I don't know if I should accept it," she said quietly. "After everything that's happened, all the secrets, do I have the right to this opportunity?" Jack took Martha's hand, surprising himself with the naturalness of the gesture. "Of course you do," he said firmly. "You've been through so much. You've sacrificed so much. It's time for the world to see your talent." Emma nodded, adding, "Jack's right, Mom. This is your chance to tell your story through your art, to heal." Martha looked at her children, her eyes bright with tears. "Do you really think so?" she asked, her voice full of hope and doubt. Absolutely, Jack and Emma responded in unison, which provoked a surprised laugh from all three. For a moment, they felt like the family they were always meant to be. But then, the reality of their situation settled back in. But, Martha began, looking around, what will happen to the yacht, to our life here? Jack remained thoughtful for a moment. Maybe, he said slowly, maybe it's time for a change. This yacht has been my refuge for years, but now I have a family. Maybe it's time to put down roots on solid ground. Emma looked at him in surprise. Are you sure? She asked. This is your home. Jack smiled, a mixture of nostalgia and determination on his face. It was my home, he corrected softly. But now, my home is where you are. Besides, he added with a mischievous smile, so I think Mom could use a bigger studio to prepare for her exhibition. Martha laughed, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. Oh, my children, she said, drawing them both into a hug. How did I get so lucky? As they embraced, the sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky in golden and pink hues. It was as if the universe itself was celebrating this new chapter in their lives. But as the emotion of the moment faded, new questions arose. Where would they live? How would they adapt to a life together on solid ground? And more importantly, how would Jack and Emma handle the complexity of their feelings while trying to build a sibling relationship? The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, the three faced it with hope and unity. Martha's exhibition would not only be a celebration of her art, but also a new beginning for all of them. As they began to make plans for their move and for the exhibition, none of them could imagine the challenges and surprises that awaited them. The path to true healing and family unity was just beginning, and it would be full of unexpected twists. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. The decision to leave the yacht and move to solid ground brought with it a wave of emotions and logistical challenges. Jack, accustomed to life at sea, found himself navigating the complicated waters of real estate. After several days of searching, they found a spacious house on the outskirts of the city. It had a large garden, perfect for Martha to paint outdoors, and enough rooms for each of them to have their personal space. Most importantly, it had a sense of home that none of them had experienced in a long time. The moving day arrived sooner than they expected. As they packed the last boxes on the yacht, the three of them paused for a moment, looking around with a mixture of nostalgia and excitement. It's strange, Jack said, running his hand along the railing. I never thought I'd leave this place. Emma put a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of comfort that had become natural between them. But you're gaining so much more, she said softly. Jack looked at her, a bittersweet smile on his face. I know, he responded, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Martha observed them, her heart full of love and a hint of concern. She could see the closeness between her children, the connection that went beyond their newly discovered siblinghood. She knew they would have to address that issue eventually, but for now she was content to have them both in her life. The move to the new house brought with it a series of adjustments. Jack, accustomed to his independence, now had to learn to live as a family. Emma, who had always been her mother's caretaker, now shared that responsibility with her brother. And Martha, determined to make up for lost time, sometimes overwhelmed her children with her attention and care. One night, a few weeks after the move, Jack found Emma in the garden looking at the stars. He sat down beside her in silence, both aware of the unresolved tension between them. And what are you thinking about? Jack finally asked. Emma sighed, her eyes still fixed on the night sky. About how life changes, she responded. A few months ago, we were strangers. Then... She stopped, the unspoken words hanging between them. Then we almost became something more, Jack completed softly. Emma nodded, finally looking at him. And now we're siblings, she said. It's complicated. Jack took her hand, a gesture that had become both comforting and bittersweet. I know, he said. But Emma, regardless of how all this started, I'm grateful to have you in my life. As a sister, as a friend, as... He paused, searching for the right words. As an essential part of my life. Emma smiled through the tears that were beginning to form in her eyes. "Me too," she said. "It's just that sometimes I wonder, what would have happened if things were different?" Jack completed. Emma nodded, unable to speak. Jack drew her into a hug, allowing himself for a moment to imagine an alternate reality where they could be together in a different way. But then, the sound of Martha calling them for dinner brought them back to reality. They separated, a mixture of emotions in their eyes. "Come on," Jack said, standing up and offering her his hand. "The family is waiting for us." Emma took his hand, allowing him to help her up. As they walked towards the house, they both knew they would have to learn to navigate this new relationship with all its nuances and complications. Inside, Martha was waiting for them with a smile. She had prepared a special dinner to celebrate the progress of her retrospective exhibition. The aroma of home-cooked food filled the house, creating an atmosphere of warmth and home. As they dined, sharing stories and laughter, the three felt a sense of belonging they had yearned for years. But beneath the surface of this newly discovered happiness, currents of unresolved emotions and secrets yet to be revealed threatened to disturb the peace they had found. What none of them knew was that fate had more surprises in store for them. Martha's exhibition would not only be a celebration of her art, but also the catalyst for revelations that would shake the foundations of their newly formed family. As they raised their glasses to toast to the future, none of them could imagine the twists that awaited them on the road ahead. The true test of their family bond was just beginning. As the date of Martha's retrospective exhibition approached, the excitement in the house grew. Martha spent hours in her new studio, putting the finishing touches on her most recent works, while Jack and Emma took care of the logistical details. One afternoon, as Jack was reviewing some documents related to the exhibition, he found something that caught his attention. It was an old photograph that had slipped between the papers. In it, a young Martha was smiling next to a man Jack immediately recognized as his father, Thomas. But what surprised him was the third person in the photo, a man who looked remarkably like Michael, Jack murmured, his heart racing. At that moment, Emma entered the room. "Jack, have you seen the—" She stopped when she saw the expression on her brother's face. "What's wrong?" Jack showed her the photograph without saying a word. Emma took it, her eyes widening in surprise. "Is that—" she began. Jack nodded. "Michael," he confirmed. "But look how young they all look. This must be from before everything went wrong." Emma studied the photo, her brow furrowing in confusion. "But why would Mom keep a photo with Michael?" she asked. "After everything he did to us?" Before Jack could answer, they heard Martha's voice calling them from the studio. They exchanged a look, silently agreeing not to mention the photo until they could talk to their mother in private. That night, after dinner, Jack and Emma decided it was time to address the issue. They found Martha in the garden, enjoying the night breeze. "Come, Mom," Jack began, his voice soft but firm. "There's something we need to ask you." Martha looked at them, immediately noticing the seriousness on their faces. "What's going on?" she asked, a note of concern in her voice. Emma took the photograph out of her pocket and handed it to Martha. Her mother's reaction was immediate. She paled, her hands trembling slightly as she took the image. Where did you find this?" she asked in a whisper. "It was among the exhibition papers," Jack explained. "Mom, who was Michael, really? Why did you keep a photo with him?" Martha closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When she opened them, there was a mixture of pain and resolution in her gaze. "There's so much I haven't told you," she began. "So much I wanted to protect you from knowing, but I guess it's time you know the whole truth." Jack and Emma sat on either side of their mother, preparing for what they were about to hear. "Michael," Martha began, her voice barely a whisper. "Michael was Thomas's brother." The revelation fell like a bomb. Jack and Emma looked at each other, stunned. "What?" Emma exclaimed. "But how is that possible?" Martha sighed deeply. "Thomas and Michael were very close when I met them," she explained. "They were both artists, both dreamed of leaving their mark on the art world. But while Thomas was talented and dedicated, Michael always looked for shortcuts." Jack listened in silence, trying to process this new information. At first, everything was fine, Martha continued. We were an inseparable trio, but then Thomas and I fell in love. And Michael didn't take it well. Was he in love with you? Emma asked softly. Martha nodded, tears forming in her eyes. That's what I thought at first. But over time, I realized it was more than that. Michael was obsessed not just with me, but with the idea of having everything Thomas had. When Thomas began to gain recognition for his art, Michael's envy became toxic. Jack felt his heart racing. And the forgeries? Jack asked. They started as a joke, Martha said bitterly. Michael said he could perfectly imitate Thomas's style. At first, Thomas even felt flattered, but then Michael began selling the forgeries as originals. When we discovered it, it was already too late. Emma took her mother's hand, giving her strength to continue. What happened next? She asked softly. Martha closed her eyes, as if the memory was too painful. Thomas confronted Michael, she said with a trembling voice. He told him he was going to report him, that he couldn't continue with the fraud. But Michael went crazy. He threatened Thomas. He threatened me. He said that if we reported him, he would make sure we lost everything. Jack felt anger growing inside him. And Dad's accident, he asked, fearing the answer. Martha looked at him, tears running down her cheeks. It wasn't an accident, she confessed. Michael sabotaged Thomas's car. I discovered it afterwards, but by then it was too late. And I was so afraid for you, my babies. Emma choked back a sob. Is that why you separated us? She asked. Martha nodded. I thought that if I kept you separated, at least one of you would be safe from Michael. I never imagined that fate would bring you together in this way. Jack stood up, pacing back and forth as he processed all this information. But Mom, he finally said, why didn't you go to the police with this information? Martha looked at him with eyes full of guilt and fear. Because Michael had evidence, she said quietly. Evidence that I had participated in some of the forgeries at the beginning, before I realized how serious it had become. He told me that if I reported him, he would make sure I went to jail too, and that you would end up in the foster care system. The silence that followed this revelation was deafening. Jack and Emma looked at their mother, trying to reconcile the image of the talented artist and loving mother with this new information. Mom, Emma finally said, why are you telling us this now? Martha took a deep breath. Because the exhibition, she began, her voice trembling. The exhibition isn't just a celebration of my art, it's a trap. Jack and Emma looked at her, confused. A trap? Jack asked. Martha nodded. I've been in contact with Detective Johnson, she explained. We've been planning this since Michael was arrested. The exhibition is an opportunity to attract the others involved in Michael's forgery network. And, she paused, looking at her children with determination, it's my opportunity to confess and clear my name once and for all. Jack and Emma looked at each other, stunned. But Mom, Emma said, do you realize what that means? You could go to jail. Martha took her children's hands. I know, she said with a sad smile, but I can't live with this weight anymore. I deserve to know the whole truth, and I need to face the consequences of my actions. Jack felt a mix of emotions, pride for his mother's bravery, fear for what might happen, and a deep sadness for all they had lost. What can we do? He asked, his voice full of determination. Martha looked at them with love and gratitude. I just need you to stand by my side, she said. Whatever happens, knowing I have you gives me the strength I need. Emma and Jack hugged their mother, forming a circle of love and support. We'll be with you, Mum, Emma promised. Always. As the night progressed, the three remained in the garden, sharing more stories, crying together, and for the first time, really getting to know each other as the family they were. The exhibition, which was just days away, now had a completely new meaning. It was no longer just a celebration of Martha's art, but a moment of truth and redemption. What none of them knew was that fate had one last surprise in store for them, a surprise that would change everything they thought they knew about their past and their future. The day of the exhibition arrived with a mixture of anticipation and fear. The city's Museum of Contemporary Art bustled with activity as the final preparations were carried out. Martha's works, a mix of her early creations and her most recent pieces, adorned the walls, telling the story of a life dedicated to art and marked by love, loss, and redemption. Jack and Emma moved through the gallery, making sure everything was perfect. Despite the underlying tension, they couldn't help feeling proud of their mother and what she had accomplished. "It's amazing, isn't it?" Emma said, stopping in front of a particularly moving painting that showed two children playing on the beach. Jack nodded, recognizing the scene as a memory he never got to live. "It is," he responded softly. "Mum has really put her heart into this." At that moment, Martha appeared, looking elegant but visibly nervous. "Kids," she said, approaching them. "Detective Johnson just arrived. He says his men are in position." Jack put a comforting hand on his mother's shoulder. "Everything's going to be all right, Mum," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Emma took Martha's hand. "We're with you, whatever happens," she added. Martha smiled at them, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I love you both so much," she said. "Whatever happens tonight, I want you to know that you are the best thing that's ever happened to me." Before they could respond, the museum doors opened and guests began to enter. The exhibition had officially begun. For the next hour, Martha moved among the guests, explaining her works and receiving praise. Jack and Emma watched from a distance, alert for any sign of trouble. Suddenly, a murmur ran through the gallery. An older man, elegantly dressed, had just entered. Jack felt his heart race as he recognized him. He was one of the most influential art dealers in the city, and according to Detective Johnson's information, one of Michael's main collaborators in his forgery network. Martha saw him too, and for a moment seemed to freeze. But then, with a determination that Jack and Emma had never seen in her, she headed towards the man. "Mr. Peterson," Martha said, her voice surprisingly firm. "What a surprise to see you here." The man turned to her, a forced smile on his face. "Martha, dear," he responded, "I couldn't miss your grand return to the art world." Jack and Emma approached, ready to intervene if necessary. But before they could reach them, something unexpected happened. A young man who had been observing the scene from a distance quickly approached. Jack felt the world stop when the young man spoke. "Mom?" he said, looking directly at Martha. The silence that followed was deafening. Martha paled, her eyes wide with shock. Mark?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jack and Emma looked at each other, stunned. "Mom, Mark? Who was this young man, and why was he calling Martha Mom?" Mr. Peterson, taking advantage of the confusion, tried to slip away, but Detective Johnson, who had been watching everything, quickly intercepted him. "Mr. Peterson," the detective said, "I'm afraid we have some questions for you." As Johnson led Mr. Peterson away, Jack and Emma approached Martha and the young man who had called her Mom. "Mom," Jack said, his voice shaky. "What's going on? Who is he?" Martha looked at them, tears running down her cheeks. "Jack, Emma," she said with a broken voice, "this is Mark, your older brother." The world seemed to stop. Jack felt like he couldn't breathe, while Emma clung to his arm to keep from falling. Older brother," Emma stammered. Mark looked at them with a mixture of shock and longing. I didn't know I had siblings," he said softly. Martha sobbed, covering her mouth with her hand. "I'm so sorry," she said between tears. "There's so much I haven't told you, so much I need to explain." At that moment, Detective Johnson approached again. "Martha," he said gently, "I know this is a difficult moment, but we need your statement. Mr. Peterson is willing to cooperate, but we need your testimony to close the case." Martha nodded, wiping her tears. "Kids," she said, looking at her 3 children, "I know you have 1,000 questions. I promise I'll tell you everything. But first, I need to do this. I need to face my past once and for all." Jack and Emma and Mark looked at each other, united by confusion and shock. But despite everything, Jack felt a determination growing inside him. "Go, Mom," he said, taking her hand. "Do what you need to do. We'll be here when you get back." Emma and Mark nodded, forming a united front despite barely knowing each other. As Martha followed Detective Johnson, Jack, Emma and Mark stood together, watching her walk away. The exhibition continued around them, but for them the world had stopped. They had a lot to process, a lot to discover about themselves and their family. But at that moment, in the midst of chaos and confusion, Jack felt a strange sense of peace, because despite everything they were together, and together they could face anything fate had in store for them. The night was still young, and the revelations were just beginning. The last chapter of this family story was about to be written, and it promised to be the most surprising of all. The hours that followed the startling revelation in the gallery were a whirlwind of emotions and confessions. While Martha gave her statement to Detective Johnson, Jack, Emma and Mark took refuge in a small private room in the museum, trying to process everything that had happened. "So," Mark began, breaking the uncomfortable silence, "you didn't know about my existence either?" Jack and Emma shook their heads. "We found out we were siblings recently," Emma explained, "but we had no idea there was another brother." Mark nodded, running a hand through his hair in a gesture that Jack recognized as his own. "I grew up in an orphanage," Mark said. "I always knew I was adopted, but I never imagined I had a family like this." Jack felt a pang of guilt. He had grown up with all the comforts, while his older brother had spent his childhood in an orphanage. "How did you discover the truth?" he asked. Mark pulled a crumpled paper from his pocket. "I found this among my adoptive mother's things after she passed away," he explained, handing them the paper. "It's my original birth certificate. Martha's name was there." Emma took the paper with trembling hands. "Why did Mom never tell us about you?" she murmured, more to herself than to the others. Before anyone could answer, the door opened and Martha entered, accompanied by Detective Johnson. Her face showed signs of having cried, but there was a determination in her eyes that Jack had never seen before. "Kids," she said softly, "I think I owe you an explanation. All of you." The three siblings looked at each other and then nodded, preparing for what they were about to hear. Martha took a seat in front of them, took a deep breath and began her story. "Mark," she said, looking at her eldest son, "you were born when Thomas and I were very young. We could barely support ourselves, let alone a baby. Michael," her voice broke at mentioning that name, "Michael convinced us that the best thing would be to give you up for adoption. He promised us you would go to a good family, that you would have opportunities that we couldn't give you." Tears ran down Martha's cheeks as she continued, "It was the hardest decision of our lives. We regretted it almost immediately, but by the time we tried to get you back, it was already too late. Michael had forged the adoption papers. He had sent you away and threatened to expose us if we tried to look for you." Jack felt anger growing inside him. Michael had done more damage to his family than he had ever imagined. Martha continued her story, revealing how the pain of losing Mark had overshadowed her relationship with Thomas, how Michael had taken advantage of that vulnerability to manipulate them, and how, finally, it had led to Thomas's tragic death. "When I discovered I was pregnant with twins," she said, looking at Jack and Emma, "I swore I would do everything possible to protect you, even if that meant separating you. It was a mistake. I know that now. But at that moment, it seemed like the only way to keep you safe." The silence that followed Martha's confession was deafening. The three siblings processed the information, trying to reconcile this new reality with everything they had believed they knew. Finally, it was Mark who spoke. "Mom," he said, the word sounding strange but right on his lips, "I can't say I understand all the decisions you made, but I know it must have been incredibly difficult, and I'm grateful to have found my way back to you, to all of you." Emma, with tears in her eyes, took Mark's hand. "We're family," she said firmly. "Despite everything, despite the lost time, we're family." Jack nodded, feeling an emotion he couldn't name growing in his chest. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking slightly, "what will happen now with the investigation?" with everything. Martha looked at Detective Johnson, who had remained silent throughout the conversation. Thanks to Martha's cooperation, the detective explained, we've been able to dismantle Michael's forgery network. Mr. Peterson and others involved will face charges. As for Martha, he paused, looking at her with sympathy. Given her cooperation and the mitigating circumstances, she's likely to receive a suspended sentence. A collective sigh of relief ran through the room. So you won't go to jail? Emma asked, hopeful. Martha shook her head, a small smile forming on her lips. No, my dear, but I have a lot to make up for, with all of you. The four looked at each other, a mixture of emotions on their faces. There was pain, yes, and confusion, but there was also hope. Hope for a new beginning, for the chance to be the family they were always meant to be. What now? Jack asked, looking at his siblings and his mother. Martha took the hands of her 3 children. Now, she said with determination, we start over, together. If you'll allow me, I'd like to try to be the mother I always should have been to all 3 of you. Mark. Emma and Jack looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, they nodded. Together, Mark said. As a family, Emma added. Jack smiled, feeling for the first time in his life that he was exactly where he was meant to be. As a family, he repeated, as the sun began to peek through the museum windows, bathing the room in a golden light. The 4 of them melted into a hug. Outside, the city was waking up to a new day. And for the Anderson family, it was the beginning of a new life. The yacht that was once Jack's solitary refuge would now become a symbol of their family unity. They decided they would use it for family trips, to create new memories together and make up for lost time. Martha, freed from the weight of her secrets, found new inspiration in her art. Her paintings, now full of light and hope, told the story of a family reunited against all odds. Emma and Jack, free from the confusion of their initial feelings, developed a strong sibling bond. Together, they dedicated themselves to helping other separated families, using their resources and experiences to make a difference. And Mark, the long-lost brother, finally found the sense of belonging he had always yearned for. His unique perspective became a bridge that brought the family even closer together. As the sun rose on the horizon, promising a new day full of possibilities, the Anderson family stood united, ready to face any challenge the future might bring. Because now they knew that, whatever happened, they would face it together. And so, in the gallery of a museum, surrounded by art that told their story, a broken family finally became whole.